Stuart Green, from the Armour Group of companies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Here you go. This all gets edited, so we can pause and stop and mumble and stumble. It's pretty good. What do you think?
It's pretty nifty, isn't it?
I mean, I thought... So the other option was obviously the Zoom version of it.
No, you don't want to be doing that.
It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
So the point of this podcast for me, one was to showcase local businesses, right? Local businesses that I work with, I know about.
Businesses
I
local
enjoy.
to you.
Yeah, local to me, right? Yeah. My circle of influence.
On your patch.
Yeah, exactly. But also, it was to give businesses the opportunity to showcase, one, what they do, but also the journey, like how they got there and what the vision is. So, I mean,
careful what you wish for.
You've got a fair old group.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's start with what the Armour Group looks like.
Right. Okay. Well, it hasn't always looked like this. It started with one business, and then the subject matter that we covered within that business. So initially it was Stuart Green Digital Engineering, which said exactly what we did, because it was cybersecurity before cybersecurity became such a thing that it is. But people didn't understand what digital engineering was. And when you start doing this elevator pitch, and we do this, and we do this, and we do this, and people glaze over. So it was just a bit before COVID, we started down the path of really sort of breaking out into separate brands, if you like, what we did within the one company, and turn that into a group, because it was more of a group offering. And it's easier to talk about network armour, digital armour, airborne armour, coded armour, dark armour, and wherever we go next, maybe legal armour, who knows. So that was how it started. It was more of a more palatable way to talk about what we do and how we do it, and it means that we're not overwhelming people with everything that we do. We can just talk about little compartmentalised parts of the business and each brand rather than the entire group. So the Armour Group is just a generic, easy way of talking about us as a number of businesses, but each individual company within the group does its own specialised thing in its own way, really.
And what do they do?
So, network armour, that one's sort of the longest, and that's possibly the most easily identifiable. That looks at cybersecurity. It's a traditional IT security thing that people expect. So it's not IT, because cybersecurity isn't IT. IT is a very small part of the overall cybersecurity thing. And Network Armour isn't an IT company, but it does the secure architecture, the protection, the protective layers, the defensive layers that any business needs in order to successfully defend from attack. So that's software, hardware, how you build the network, how you string it together, what the network looks like, how you break it up so that different parts of the network become more protected than others. So all of that networky stuff, which is why it's called network armour, puts armour around networks. So that's the easiest bit to talk about. Digital armour, that's a lot of fun, really, because that's where we can have a lot of fun. There's a boring part to it, which is the compliance bit, but that's a really important part, fundamental part of digital armour. So we've been a Cyber Essentials certification body right from the start of the scheme back in 2014. So for 10 years, we've been certifying businesses and organisations of all sizes from different parts of the planet to the UK's Cyber Essentials standard. So we've got a lot of experience in organisations of all sizes, all sectors, throughout the UK, Europe, Middle East, and further afield. So further east and also in the US. So a number of different sizes business within that. And of course, we've also now started doing, as people have matured, so they got the Cyber Essentials, then they got Cyber Essentials Plus, then they got IASME Cyber Assurance, then they got ISO 27001. They've sort of been on a maturity path. So these businesses that we started dealing with in the early days, they've now matured much further on. And we've recently started doing the new cyber baseline standard for international companies. So we've got the scheme is in pilot at the minute, and we got our first one certified last week. So that was a first for the UAE of a new standard. So that's pretty cool. So away from Cyber Essentials, Cyber Assurance, Cyber Baseline, the ISO 27001 beast comes into it, and a lot of people be familiar with ISO standards, 9001, 14001, 22301, 27001. The 27001 piece is, quite a whale to devour. So we take people through that process. And we also have quite an interesting capability when it comes to penetration testing. So pretending to be the attackers getting into businesses in whatever form that may take. So it might be digitally, it might be computer hacks, it might be breaking and entering, it might be getting into buildings, stealing data, depending how...
Physically getting into buildings?
Yeah.
That's a laugh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is where cybersecurity is way more than just IT, because it's this sort of tradecraft that we have to develop and have to understand. So, how to compromise door mechanisms, how to get into businesses where they've got key fobs or, that sort of thing. There's loads of different things that build on top of that. So it's way more than just IT.
Let's go back just a tiny bit. Say that again. So as part of working out somebody's vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
You do what exactly?
Well, break and enter.
So not just the normal penetration testing, which is digitally trying to break into somebody's computer like a hacker would.
Mm-hmm.
You also...
But that's just the vision people have of hackers.
Yeah.
Hacker.
So what's the reality?
So really what we're talking about are cyber criminals, because I am a hacker.
Okay.
So I'm an ethical hacker, so not a criminal. Yeah?
Okay.
Good to point that out.
So what's the practical reality of what a company or a person is facing from a criminal hacker?
So criminals want...
What can they be doing?
Criminals want data.
Yeah.
So data is now the most valuable commodity any business will have. That can be personal data, that can be medical data, that can be intellectual property. It could be, in your line of work, legal casework. Because if the other side can get access to the legal casework, the private, privileged, confidential stuff that the legal team are doing, if they can get an upper hand and potentially use that to disrupt the case or whatever, that gives somebody an upper hand. So this data is valuable. And this is why there's so big a rise in cybercrime, because that data is so valuable. And this is why ransomware is so devastating, because when you can't get access to the data and then the criminals publish it online, so that yes, you can get your data back, but then so can anybody else with an internet connection. That's why it can be so devastating, because that personal data already gone, that intellectual property already gone. Somebody else will have that, and it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to keep that close, private, secure, away from the public domain, so that your business can operate successfully. So however a criminal can do that, they are going to do it. Now that can be remotely. It could be via a phishing email. It could be just by tailgating somebody and walking in, planting a USB stick and coming out. There are so many ways that a criminal can get access to that data. It isn't always going to be via a phishing email. It could be something like a USB stick. And I've brought a few bits along which we can talk about at some point. So the testing of your defense is hugely important, because you don't know how your defense is going to work if you don't test it. And the criminals are testing continuously. Organised crime, they don't sleep. They're always going to be at it, always trying to get that one step ahead of you, and you're always playing catch up. But if you don't know how you're being attacked, how can you defend effectively against it?
Mm.
You can't just buy antivirus and think, hey, I'm sorted. You know, it's way more than that. You've got to put your defences in place, test them, understand where your weaknesses are, sort that out, and build up a whole defence in-depth strategy. So lots and lots of layers of defences.
But isn't that expensive for
No.
a small business, a reasonable business?
No, it's a misconception that it's expensive. You can have defensive layers which can be purely policy driven. So if you're doing a backup and you're doing a backup via a removable hard drive, you unplug it at night and you make sure everyone unplugs it at night and you pop it in the safe. Or it goes home with somebody. You know, those are policy based. They don't cost. But it can all be part of your defensive strategy. And it varies from business to business. So there's no just out-of-the-box solution that one business can buy, and that's the same for every single business. It has to be tailored, has to be adapted, sometimes improvised, sometimes decoys. So you're putting decoy data out, but you've got to look as though it's protected. So you're funneling an attack down a particular path. So there's lots of different techniques that you can employ to fool an attacker into attacking you a particular way.
It makes you want to go back to pen and paper, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because with paper files, you weren't under that much threat. You could accidentally, somebody stumble bum his way into your office if you absolutely had to. But no one was doing that. No one was robbing, offices for their employee data.
And it was harder to get access to. And when people have, I mean, if you think about,
it was harder because you had to physically break in.
Yeah, let's look at legal correspondence. So, say for argument's sake, a solicitor is communicating with a client. There will generally be a letter, which will be a Word document or a PDF, attached to an email, and that'll just get sent to the client. In the olden days, what would happen is that letter would get typed, it would get put into an envelope, then the envelope would go into the post, and when the recipient received the envelope, they'd be able to see if it had been opened, because there's only one way to open an envelope. So you've already got there a more secure way of communicating because it's a letter and an envelope. These days, email, you just attach a file, off it goes. Anywhere through that transit of that email to the recipient, that can be read, that can be hijacked. And this is why we see business email compromise, where invoices appear with the wrong bank details on. It's because people aren't protecting those invoices. Just off you go, thank you, yeah, assume it gets there. And they're not protecting it along the way.
How are you supposed to protect it? Because Microsoft Office says that they protect it. They've got some version of security, this, that.
No. When you take on a cloud service, they will say what they protect, and they will tell you what you protect. So with Microsoft, they will protect the security of the cloud, which is the physical machines, the physical platform, data centers. They protect that. They say to you, when you're signing up to this service, we'll protect this part, shared responsibility policy. That's what it is. Shared responsibility policy. They'll protect the data of the cloud.
Okay.
Sorry, they'll protect the security of the cloud. You protect the data in the cloud. So that's the shared responsibility model, and every cloud provider has these. So Amazon has one, Microsoft has one. But when you sign the T's and C's, you say that you've read it. And there's so many people who've moved to the cloud that haven't understood the shared responsibility model, and really moving to a cloud service is not right for them because they haven't got the wherewithal to protect the data that they're putting into the cloud. They just assume that your Microsofts, your Amazons, whoever, have got that sorted, and they haven't. That's your data that you're putting in their cloud. They're protecting the cloud, they're not protecting your data. That's your responsibility. That's why cloud sucks.
So how am I supposed to send an email then? What's the safe way to send an email?
So a safe way to send an email is effectively put it in an envelope. So if you're going to send a letter, So, say for argument's sake, it's a Word document.
Mm.
You can password protect that Word document, attach it to your email, send it. Doesn't make it impossible, but just like an envelope, that's not impossible to steam open, read, put back in, glue shut. But it makes it harder for people to get into it. So
Okay.
password protecting that document, but then what you do is you text your client and say, "Yeah, Mush, just sent you a letter. The password is such and such," but you send that through a different means. So you don't send the password through email, you send them the text. And then when they receive the email, they can get into it, put your password in that you've texted them.
It's a lot of extra stuff.
It's just like putting it in an envelope. It's more convenient to put it in an envelope and send it through the post, but it's way, way, way more expensive.
Yeah. I mean, the email contains information that's important.
Absolutely. And this is why phishing is such a...
It's not just the attachments that are...
Oh, no, it can be the body of the email.
The
It can
body
be...
of the email.
And the amount of...
So can you password protect the email?
Well, you can encrypt emails. You can send secure emails.
They're not encrypted already.
No. Encoded, not necessarily encrypted. It's brilliant. It's a brave new world.
So so we've gone from a relatively secure, reliable, slow way of doing business and energy expensive, I suppose, trees. blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah.
to a very convenient but vulnerable way of doing business.
And I mean, encrypting an email is not difficult. You know, it's an extra button click.
Is that?
Yeah, you've just got to have the right stuff installed on your computer, and the recipient has to be doing it the same way. You know, there are ways that you can do it within Microsoft 365. There's different ways that you can do it depending on the platform you're using.
Okay, so that's that then. Okay.
It can be done, and it's not difficult, but very few people do it.
So, a little birdie told me that there is, I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory or just a lunatic, but they said there is an intentional suppression of information about just how rampant cyber attacks are.
I think it's because it's difficult.
Is that true?
I wouldn't say it's... I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy theory, no.
Do you think they're intentionally not telling people how? Because I don't know why every business doesn't have you on their team.
Because there's only one of me.
Yeah.
And my mum says I'm very special.
But why? I mean, why doesn't every business just call?
Because they don't understand what happens until it actually happens to them. Once it happens to them, that's when they realise the devastation.
Is it that bad? Are the cyber attacks happening all the live long day?
So over the past 6 months, we've gone from one phone call per week with somebody who is undergoing a ransomware attack to about 2 or 3 per day. And quite often when we are phoning them, we are telling them that they've been hit by ransomware because we've been able to detect it first. So we are telling them ahead of them knowing that they've been hit by ransomware, because obviously we have our alerting systems and the way that we go out and find that information. We have actual people going out and doing it, you know, so that's our digital media investigators, threat intelligence people. They are going out and actually doing this, looking at it, and when we call to say, do you realise this is happening, quite often, oh, no, I knew something was wrong this morning. And, you know, we've seen, now the organised crime, we've seen it where they've unleashed hell on the business when an IT manager is flying off on holiday. So as that plane is taken off, that's when it's all been triggered. Boom, he's in the air. So they're effectively rudderless. Chaos is going on throughout the business. They can't get in touch with him. He's in the air for 4 hours. When he lands on his holiday, he no longer has a holiday because this has now gone on and gone on and gone on, and it's got worse and worse and worse. And they've now got a bigger hill to climb. But that's exactly why it's done. It's there to sort of create that pressure, to create that incentive for the business to pay the ransom and allegedly get the data back. Now, a lot of businesses don't, and that's the right thing to do, not to pay the ransom. But if you've got effective backup that's been tested, if you've got all the policies, procedures, processes, technical controls in place, the chances of getting hit by ransomware greatly reduced. The chances of recovering from the effects of ransomware greatly increased. So simple things that you can do to make sure that if it does happen, crack on. But the problem is getting worse and worse. And we've seen the number of UK businesses hit on such a steep incline. There's more and more groups taking more and more action, and more businesses getting compromised because they haven't got the right processes, procedures, technical controls
How
in
come
place.
the hackers can find...
Criminals, not hackers. Criminals.
All right. How come the criminals can find the business, but the wizards can't find the hackers? Or the criminals? How come you can't go backwards?
So
why can't I follow them?
to hide what you're doing, I mean, the internet really can be used for privacy. And that's one of the brilliant things the internet can do. It can protect your privacy. So the criminals who are undertaking these activities, they know how to protect their privacy. They know how to use the internet to their advantage to protect the privacy.
Mm.
The average internet user doesn't understand how to protect their privacy. They haven't understood the amount of data that they've put out on social media. They haven't understood the amount of jigsaw pieces they've just thrown out into the wild for anybody to pick up and just start doing that picture building of their life, their pattern of life, who they're connected to, what they do, where they go, and just build all of that up. And then that can then be exploited against the individual or the business. All of that information's out there, and it's very often unprotected.
So if they wanted to, a business could use the internet to protect its
Absolutely,
to protect its privacy, because if they're doing any kind of marketing, their privacy's gone, isn't it?
Not necessarily it's the right marketing, but if you've got the right technical controls in place to enable you to use the internet safely, there is no reason why you can't have effective marketing. It's just understanding how the criminals work so that you can give them information that isn't going to lead to anything, that takes them down a path or stops you being a low-hanging fruit, pick your cliche on that side. But if you can control how you're being attacked, you can work uncontested and do the marketing that you need and all that sort of thing. You've just got to understand how to protect yourself and market with that in mind. So it's...
And you can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that, make a business secure or a person secure.
Yeah.
At some point, I don't know what time it is. Oh, this time. At some point, I do want to talk about how you got into said secret squirrel work.
Okay.
But did you want to talk about what you brought in? What did you bring in? What have you got? You brought some goodies in.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that.
What's that?
What does it look like?
My car keys.
Oh, okay. I guess you have them then.
Is this the very devil?
Sorry?
What is it?
It's a car key, isn't it?
Can I press this? It's not going to blow
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. Simple as a car key, yeah.
Yeah? It's a car key, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just look at the end of it. Other end.
What is it?
Well, what do you see on the other end? Other end. Anything strike you as being a bit different about that?
Not me. I'm not particularly observant, though.
So you're giving that a good look there, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's a camera lens. So that there just sits and functions as a camera. So it's not a car key at all. It looks like a car key, behaves like a car key, but I mean, you had to give that a real close inspection to see that that is actually a camera.
Well, yeah, because I would have just assumed that was whatever infrared.
Like an LED or... Yeah.
The infrared that works these. All right.
So less than a tenner on certain Chinese online shops.
What for? What's it for?
What's a camera? It can film. So if you put that car key...
Is it a good camera?
It's reasonable, yeah. I mean, you could put that on a desk and it can film somebody typing on the keyboard.
Bloody Nora.
So, you know, it's a camera. the cameras can fit in lots of different places. So covert filming, conversation recording. It can do anything a camera can do, but it looks like a car key. I mean, this is, you can see it's got stickers and that missing. It's been used a lot, this, out on engagements. But innocuous little thing.
Okay.
So that's a bit of fun.
Is that on?
Eh? No, it's not on. No.
Oh,
No.
so what else did you...
Breaking and entering. Always good fun. So we have here, and these you can get widely available on interweb. So that there, padlock, that's a training padlock.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. I don't know if this is going to work because I've never taught somebody how to pick a lock on a podcast before.
You're going to teach me to pick a lock?
Yeah. Let's see if we can do that.
All right.
Let's see if we can do that on a podcast.
Awesome.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, that's probably going to work. I think.
What are you up to? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Pick locks. I mean, this is actually quite relaxing. So, what you've got in the lock. Can we move these mics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ish, as long as it's close enough to your face. I
Yeah.
suppose.
Okay. Right. So you've got here your pick and a lever.
All right.
Okay. Now, the first thing I want you to do is just pop this in, and you'll see down here. You've got these lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in each one of those, there's a spring and a little cylinder.
Okay.
And if you go in and with your pick, you'll be able to feel the cylinders as you go along, and you'll be able to podge them and lift them. So what you're doing with this is you're just feeling as you go along. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's the other one? You'll feel the inside of the lock as you sort of go into it. There we go. So use that, and then pop it inside the lock and have a little bit of a feel, and watch as the springs move as you're sort of touching them inside. So when you're moving those little cylinders, have a look through the transparent bit. This is why it's a training lock, and you'll see that there's sort of like a point where the top half of the cylinder meets and the bottom half meets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? So when you're picking a lock, what you've got to do is when the key goes in, it lines all of those cylinders up so that split that you can see it is all level with the top of the lock, okay, which then frees it. So now what you've got to do when you're going to pick it, I'll try with that one, but that might need that one. So what we want to do is we want to put a little bit of tension on the lock. So tiny little bit. It doesn't want to be much. So tiny little bit, and then you pop into the lock, and you're just looking to see which one of these little levers has got the tension. Because once you've got that one done,
then you can move to the next one.
You can move to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Actually, I'm going to use a different. So you can see that that one on there, the angle isn't very steep compared to the angle on that one. So we'll give that one a little go. So there we go. We've got that one
wonderful
hooked up.
I remember when I was at university, me and my mate Callahan, we got a book on how to pick a lock.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we did. I can't remember. Maybe we did. But it was on the cards. Like, I've got to learn how to do this. It's like great fun.
I mean, it's quite satisfying, I think.
So I suppose this is a nice segue into why you find this sort of thing satisfying.
Satisfying.
How did you get... Where did you get all your cybersecurity? What's just before Network Armour on your LinkedIn?
So I spent a number of years as an engineer in the Royal Air Force, which was the best job, without a doubt. I can tell my bloke I can't multitask, so we'll put that down. We might come to it later, because otherwise I'm going to be staring at this and not concentrating. Um, so as a so I joined the Air Force as an apprentice, and it was during the time when the Air Force could actually fix things that it had, and we got trained down to component level on a lot of the equipment that the Air Force had. So it was a 3.5 year apprenticeship, and we would basically train to fix electronics, and that's how it all started. So I've always been involved in making things. I mean, one of the first things that I made was a burglar alarm for my bedroom, but I wasn't allowed a soldering iron because it got hot. So I used wire and screws and washers to actually build the circuit up, and I did it on a block of wood. So I had resistors and transistors and light-dependent resistors, but it was all held together with screws and washers on a block of wood. Then, obviously, I was allowed to progress on to the soldering iron and that sort of thing. So I've always made things. And as I went through career, we got on to doing different things and building different things, learning new ways of working. As the aircraft technology evolved, we had to evolve with it. I spent 23 years doing the engineering side of things, but there was always the sort of military perspective on that of, surviving in austere environments and learning how to not say steal things, but how to scavenge things to make your life a little bit more comfortable. So that was really the sort of underpinnings of it, and understanding how all that worked and the mentality behind that takes you down a particular path, I suppose. So security has always been at the very foundation of what we did. My sort of passion was communications, secure communications, data links, communicating securely, effectively, quickly, without distance being a barrier, and exploring how to do that, over a 23-year period was extremely cool.
Very cool.
We actually got, I forget which magazine it was. It was some amateur radio magazine, but when I was flying in my last role, I used to use text messaging, if you like, over a radio. And there's a particular way that you can communicate via text messages over a particular type of radio. And it's just a skill to have, because you can do that text messaging side of things and wait for the response coming through, because it's a convenient way to, fire off a message, crack on with something else, message comes back in, relay it through as needed. So I used to keep practicing on the text messaging side, and an amateur radio enthusiast actually listened to one of the conversations that I had with the ground station from the air. I was just getting weather in, weather reports for different stations. And they actually documented this in this magazine, which was, that's interesting. So that was quite fun. But being able to have that knowledge of the communication system and use it in a particular way was always key, because if you'd run out of radios yet you could still text, then you had another communications path that didn't impede on anybody else, and you weren't swapping radios around as much, because we only had a limited number of radios.
So that understanding that security, or how to communicate their security securely, translates to modern day business communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the email, the text message, the social media message. I mean, when you get into how do you encrypt it, you've got your encrypted messengers, you've got your Threemers, your Signals, Session, all of those different applications that provide true encrypted communications. But then there's other technologies you can employ. It doesn't all have to be encrypt. You can hide messages in pictures, for argument's sake, using something called steganography. On one talk that I did, so going back a number of years, I used to have two pictures of Queen Elizabeth II side by side, and I would get people up from the audience and say, the left-hand picture is Queen Elizabeth. The right-hand picture has Jeremy Clarkson hidden in that picture. And I would hide an image of Jeremy Clarkson within the picture of Queen Elizabeth. And of course, everyone was getting up and they were there on the screen analysing to see where I'd hidden this Jeremy Clarkson. You know, was it just a shade thing? Was it a silhouette? But actually, what I'd done is I'd hidden the image file of a Jeremy Clarkson headshot inside the image file of the Queen. But only when you view the image file, not the actual image, view the contents of the file, can you actually see there's another file hidden inside it, copy, paste, save it, and then open that up in the image viewer, and there's your Jeremy Clarkson. So steganography is really quite an interesting technique for hiding information in photos or images that, you know, it sounds really complicated, but it's really easy to employ. And, you know, there's no reason why we can't just send pictures between each other that contain a message. You know, that might become more of a thing as communication gets harder and harder to do. You know, we might resort, rather than having encryption, resort to steganography.
But if you're sending me that picture,
Mhm.
and forgive me, obviously this is going to be a stupid question, but if you're sending me that picture, that you're sending the file, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then whatever me now sitting in the seat as a criminal, whatever I'm using to identify data that I want to steal, won't I just tweak it a little to find data that's hidden within data?
It depends how you do it. I mean, simplistically, yes, that is theoretically possible. But if you're doing steganography via an app, so say for argument's sake, people DM each other on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got to be on Instagram in order to do that. There's no reason why you couldn't produce an app that has a library of photographs. You type your message and you select who you're going to send it to, select the photograph. The app goes off and does its thing, does the encoding, maybe encrypts the message before it puts it in the image, sends the image back, and the recipient knows how to recover it. There's no reason why an app couldn't do that. So it would be an app base. It wouldn't necessarily be something that a person had to do. You know, they could just write the message, attach a photo, bosh, off it goes. You know, it could be that simple. There's no reason why we couldn't communicate like that.
How much worse is artificial intelligence making this cybersecurity thing?
This is one can of worms we really shouldn't have opened.
Oh, is it that bad?
Yeah.
So you don't love it?
Yeah, I do, because it enables, when we do phishing campaigns for our clients, we employ AI to generate a large element of the phishing emails.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say we've got close to 100% success rate of getting AI generated phishing emails through most defences now.
Wow.
It's not easy, but it's doable. So if we can do it, other people can do it as well. You know, it's again, it comes down to knowing who you're actually sending the email to, how much information, how many pieces of their jigsaw have you got? Because you might know that they're working from home, so you might target them about a home delivery that arrives in their work mailbox.
Mm.
They're working from home. They haven't made that shift from home mode to work mode because they've just gone to the home office, you know, from the kitchen, whatever. They haven't had that commute in to get into work mode. So when you've got that AI, I mean, AI is just a tool in the toolbox. It's not the be-all and end-all when it comes to cybersecurity. It is a tool in the toolbox of an attacker, but it's also a tool in the toolbox of anybody who's doing defence, because you can use it to help. So the difficulty comes when you're actually using AI. That's going to be out of reach of a lot of businesses from a defensive strategy, because it doesn't really lend itself to the smaller business. You know, there's machine learning and lots of different systems coming in now, which the smaller business can take advantage of, but it might not be that their IT company, their IT bloke, that person what knows a bit about computers, who looks after them, they might not have that tool at their disposal. So it's one of those things that I really wish we hadn't opened that for at least another 5-10 years, because there are too many businesses that haven't got cybersecurity right, haven't got the foundations right, and it would enable them to build a defensive strategy on AI.
Because I think it's awesome, right? Because I just see all the weird and wonderful things they can apparently do, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so flying cars now? Is it now-ish?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, right, so I can see the fun part of it. You play with GPT for 5 minutes and you're like, I found a therapist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like your best mate. So
Look at it this way. So sextortion, all right, that is a big issue. So kids now between 12 and 15 live a lot of their life on social media, Snapchat, Instagram, all of this sort of stuff. Everyone wants to be famous. Everybody wants to be an influencer. So they're building up this online portfolio of stuff. Now, sextortion is becoming a big thing. It's hitting a lot of teenage lads. And the way that is happening is that because they've been posting photographs on Instagram forever, you've got a library there of available pictures that can train an AI engine. So we're getting faces of young lads and girls to that degree put on artificially generated bodies, nudes, and then that has been used against the individual to buy gift cards, scratch off gift cards, give that to the criminals. So the threat of exposing this nude image, which isn't them, but it's AI generated, but I think went back to when you were a teenager, the thought of nude pictures of you, whoa, no, that's a huge deterrent. So you're going to do what the criminal wants you to do with that. And a lot of teenagers are falling foul of that. I mean, now if I got AI-generated nudes, hey, crack on, because that's going to be far more attractive than the reality. But I think with teenagers, that's a big problem. We're seeing more and more of that creeping into the defensive side of what we're doing. It's not necessarily the business that is suffering; it could be the business owners' kids. I mean, if criminals start attacking your kids, you're going to go rush to their defence far quicker than you're going to rush to the business's defence, because they're your priority. They're your own blood. You're naturally going to gravitate towards them. So let's soften the business owner up by attacking the kids, and that's what they're going to do, and then take the business owner out of the comfort zone, start exploiting them. The criminal is only limited by their imagination.
This doesn't feel like the best we can do. Whatever we're doing doesn't feel like the best we can do.
We're not. We're absolutely not. I mean, this is why we've stayed on.
Okay, now you're the Prime Minister of the country. Congratulations, welcome, Prime Minister.
Oh God.
What are you going to do about it, man?
Well,
you're now the Prime Minister of the country.
So okay, so if I was Prime Minister, God forbid it.
Yeah, but I mean, so what isn't being done? I understand that you can protect a business. You can your companies, the Armour Group, can protect a business. I get that. Right, but there are now a myriad and a growing myriad of criminals finding more and more creepier ways of attacking people, individuals, children, and businesses. So, as a government, what are they missing?
So, our UK government, 10 years ago, they introduced Cyber Essentials. Every business should have that. That should be part and parcel.
That's a cost to the business, isn't it?
Well, so's your tax. So's your VAT.
Yeah, so you're saying
your insurance.
Businesses should have it imposed upon them to take this security seriously.
Absolutely.
Because the cost of the vulnerability is too high.
Like paying your road tax, like paying your MOT. Every business should take the basic steps. Yeah. If the business takes the basic steps...
Is Cyber Essentials, is that a decent basic step?
Absolutely. The clue's in the name. Cyber Essentials. It's the essential steps
so that is,
any business should take to protect themselves. 5 technical controls. It's simple as that. Deploy them. But some businesses struggle because they don't want to. They don't want to have to do that.
So they're the problem.
Yeah.
So that's different. So that's okay.
But that business is in somebody else's supply chain. So the business that gets attacked and compromised, they're not necessarily the target. The target might be somebody that they deal with.
Oof. Yeah, but if the business that they deal with is all kind of armored up.
You'd like to think. But if that business trusts the compromised business, they tend to lower the guard.
Yeah, they do.
And, trust is earned, and it takes a second to break it. So, if I was Prime Minister, every business, you've got to have cyber essentials. No ifs, no buts. That's the standard that you have to attain. I mean, that could be imposed by banks. There's no reason why the banks can't say, if you want a business account, have you got cyber essentials?
No.
Because
how long does it take to get cyber essentials?
the longest it's taken us was 19 months.
19 months.
Yeah, and that was taking a business from zero to hero, if you like, 19 months. Well, I say business, it's wrong.
19 months is a long time.
Organisation.
19 months is a long time.
It was.
Well, that's different. That's understand. I can see the problem there. So that's a Goliath of a problem.
But the quickest.
So a normal business, a normal SME business, little guy.
Normal business, 3 months.
Okay.
That's going through the process at a really manageable pace. The quickest we've taken somebody through it was 3 weeks.
Okay.
So, there's...
And what's the cost to businesses?
A business can download all the questions for free. They can then go and take the self-assessment, and it'll cost them 300 quid. So 300 quid a year for a small business to do that and just work through the questions, answer the questions.
Doesn't seem like such a big imposition.
It's not. It's just the essential steps. It makes the business more resilient, makes the business more competitive.
Okay.
Dead easy. Some people need hand-holding because not everybody is great when it comes to IT, understanding what IT means. So that's where you've got cyber advisors. They can come in, I am one, and help a business gear themselves up for cyber essentials. Mm-hmm. Cyber advisor can't actually take them through the self-assessment because they're only there to advise, they're not there to assess. That's why we have assessors as well. So you've got your cyber advisor who can hold a business's hand through the process if they don't understand what it means. So all of these resources are available to UK businesses. You've got your cyber advisors, you've got your assessors that work in certification bodies like Digital Armour, all of these resources, and we've got the National Cybersecurity Centre who have fabulous amounts of guidance for businesses, practical steps that they can take, world leading in what we do in the UK.
Okay, so step one, all businesses have to be cyber essentials.
Yeah.
Fine,
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't seem like the biggest imposition. What's your next move, Mr. President, Prime Minister?
Nobody under 16 on social media.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That serious?
Yeah. It is a scourge. It's ironic because this is going to be going out to social media. But social media...
But not to 16-year-olds.
No, well, you never know. If they get on YouTube. I mean, the whole problem with social media, it manifests itself in so many different ways. I mean, I always go dark quickly, as you know. But if you look at the way that pandemic affected sex trade, so let's go dark. Okay.
Pretty dark.
So now what you can find is that teenagers, maybe, groomed via social media, Instagram. They then progress to TikTok. So, they've got their Instagram pictures. They progress to TikTok with videos. Then they progress to OnlyFans. So OnlyFans, membership-only site, and they're providing content, sometimes explicit content, to their subscribers. As soon as you start seeing OnlyFans accounts with more than 100 subscribers, there's no way that somebody of school age can be maintaining those 100 subscribers, and that's where e-pimps come into it. So all of a sudden you've got this industry now which, partially due to the pandemic, the sex trade has gone online, and you've got presence of e-pimps helping people progress on OnlyFans, and then that develops on further into sex trade. You might find that OnlyFans then progresses onto Pornhub. So that's just one path that is happening more and more often with vulnerable females. from Instagram all the way through to exploitation on OnlyFans. And that's happening in plain sight. You know, the signalling is there on TikTok. Check out my OnlyFans page. Emoji codes, all there.
But wasn't there was a business case study on the way OnlyFans operate, and they encouraged e-pimps because they get a reward.
Content managers, I think.
Yeah,
they probably refer to
they
them,
get
yeah.
a percentage of every girl they put on or person they put on.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
I think that's a good enough start. I think we've got to go heavy. You know, the softly touch hasn't worked. You know, that we've got all of these data harvesters, and it's the norm now to post pictures of holidays and keep all the photos on Facebook. I mean, why would you give your photos to a data harvesting company? But people do.
You don't have a Facebook account?
Might have. No, I haven't.
I don't have one either.
No. No, very, very limited social media.
What else did you bring? Jeez, I feel sick.
Do you?
I feel creeped out, man.
Right, okay, so we've looked at the...
But this is a 10-year-old conversation, you know. My wife was being trained on this. My wife's a family lawyer. She's being trained on this when Snapchat came around.
Yeah.
And they were saying that people were using Snapchat to groom people.
Absolutely.
And like, we didn't know what Snapchat was. But when you realise what it was, you're like, there's no good reason for this thing to exist. Like, what possible reason would you want your whatever you send to disappear immediately? That can't be a good reason.
Yeah, they keep the content.
They keep the content.
They keep the content. So your message disappeared, but the content...
So they keep it?
Yeah.
They just have a way of removing it from everyone else?
Yeah, it's just because it's removed from the app, it doesn't mean it's not removed from their back end. So, say we've picked the lock, we've got in. These, I love these. So this is a little tool. Now, that there, if you have a shufty at that, I mean, how many times do you go into office space and you see the network ports on the wall and they haven't got anything in them?
Mm-hmm.
Some have got leads coming out, but there's blank ones not there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, very, very rarely do IT staff turn those ports off. And quite often they're live. So if you plug something in, you're going to get a network connection. Now, that is brilliant because you charge it up and you can pop that on the network and that will go out and it'll do a whole network report about everything that's on the network. And it'll take 3 or 4 minutes to do it. So as long as it takes you to go and have a wee, get a cup of coffee, whatever, pop that in, let it do its thing, come back, whip it out, pop it away in your pocket. Thanks very much. So a tiny little pocket-sized thing, looks fairly innocuous, but that's invaluable little tool. Brilliant. Love it.
Invaluable little tool for who? That doesn't sound like a good thing that you did.
Well, for us, if you're a criminal or if you're testing a network, the amount of information that can give you gives you good insight as to how to attack the network.
Uh-huh.
And it's very, very rarely detected. Very rarely. But this is sort of like one of these Armageddon kits.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's very, very nicely laid out. And you see things in here which look quite familiar.
Like a USB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So USB sticks, there's a lot of talk about, throwing USB sticks in, seeing what plugs them in. This, everything in here is designed to just blow stuff up, but not explosions, through static discharge. So just destroy kit. Now, this, when we first used this, it was, I wonder what would happen if we plugged it into this diagnostic port. And this diagnostic port was on a air conditioning extractor condenser unit, the bit that sits outside a building that has the fan going in it, had a diagnostic port on the side which was covered by a hatch. So we popped it in, tick, 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 tick. Fan stuffed. Oh. And there's another one next to it. I thought, wonder if it popped in, tick, tick, tick. Oh. We just killed the entire air conditioning system just by sticking in a USB stick.
Well, what does it do?
So inside it's got a capacitor. And basically, the power supply from the USB port charges up this capacitor, and then it just discharges. But because it just discharges so violently, it tends to fry the electric components inside. Now, some USB ports are protected against this sort of attack,
Okay.
but some aren't.
Well, presumably a lot of the older technology is.
Yeah. So when you're looking at air conditioning systems, pop that in, killed it. Now imagine if that was a data center. I mean, you'd like to think that it was going to have a little bit more protection, but you get some small businesses who operate what they call data centers, and it's an air-conditioned room, and you've got this unprotected condenser outside, and they're selling services on. If you wipe out the data center through, hitting the air conditioning system, they have to shut everything down because they can't cool it. So little things like this, that this is not a IT thing. That's a building utility that you're taking out, and IT's got no responsibility over that. That's facilities management. So they've got no oversight as to how that works, which is why penetration tests, it's way beyond the scope of what IT is. It finds all the vulnerabilities that affect the physical building as well.
So what's the master plan then? So network armor,
So
digital armor,
yeah,
dark armor. What does dark armor do? Please don't tell me. I don't want to know what dark armor does.
So let's just say that looks at threat intelligence. So that provides threat intelligence and investigative services.
Okay,
which is really cool, really interesting.
And then airborne armor?
So very few organisations look at the threat of drones. So airborne armour plays the part of the hostile drone. So the reason that we've broken airborne armour off is just so that part of the business is CAA regulated, because it's that company that's regulated. And hostile drone activity is where we go with that. So, if you've got a drone outside your window and your computer screen's facing the window, that drone can film your hands on the keyboard, or it can film what's going on the screen, and somebody 1 kilometre away, 2 kilometres away can actually see what you're typing on the screen. So they don't physically have to be present to see what you're typing. They've got the drone, and it's fairly inexpensive way of doing things. We've used drones to deploy rogue access points. So that's where we mimic the organisation's Wi-Fi, and we make our Wi-Fi access point more attractive than the organisation's access point. So all the devices join ours rather than the businesses, and we can harvest data that way through the access point. So that's drone delivery of a piece of rogue hardware. So that's quite creative. It's what can you deploy on a small aircraft to get into somewhere that's hard to reach. It's listening devices. It's just mayhem and destruction sometimes, but from a digital sense.
So that's the Armour Group, is it? Is there any more missing?
We've got coded armour that is, I would say, sort of in startup, really. That is going to be software that we produce. But it's fairly targeted niche software for a specific purpose within cyber. It's not stepping out of that cyber boundary. It's basically sort of to create things that we can then, go on to sell that solve particular functions within the cyber environment. It's not really. It's not going to be mainstream. It's a very niche marketplace.
Are there any other projects?
Yeah, I mean, we've got within the Armour Group itself, we've got our eyes on expansion. So
that's where I'm curious to know what the future vision is. So right now, they're all there.
Future vision now is to expand beyond the UK. So pushing into Middle East, Far East, possibly the US, but certainly expand beyond the UK, because we've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of tradecraft that is difficult to replicate, but can bring a lot of value that's been derived from the UK outside of the UK. I'm not necessarily thinking of pushing into Europe, further afield where you've got up and coming places that are sort of fairly early on in the cyber journey that we can go and deliver, add real value to, and it's those particular businesses further afield that really looking to get a foothold in. So if anybody's listening from Dubai or Singapore, when can we come over?
Would you say the UK is saturated, or there are just more opportunities?
No, I think we've the problem of cybercrime is not confined to the UK. This is a worldwide problem, and I think we're going to be years and years away from anywhere being saturated because there are so many businesses, so many organisations that aren't doing enough, getting the people to do it with the right
So
knowledge and
presumably,
experience.
whereas here we're dealing with businesses and some NGOs, I guess, police forces, all the rest of it. I suppose if you go out to Dubai, you're dealing, or go out to the Middle East and the Far East, you're dealing with organisations and governmental organisations.
Well, organisations, businesses, I mean, the needs, it doesn't matter what size of business or organisation or company or your basic needs for protecting the data, protecting your IP, protecting all of that stuff that you got, they're all the same. It's just the size, the method that's unique. So there's no reason why a UK cyber company can't work with somebody in Dubai, in Singapore, in Vietnam, Malaysia.
Well, they have a degree of paranoia working with a non-local company. Because you're talking about cybercrime and cyber espionage and all that.
There may be, and if there is that degree of paranoia, then that business isn't the right one for us to work with. It's not like we're going to be the only people in that space.
Like there's a certain degree of paranoia between China and England, for example.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I can't actually see a time where we'd go and work in China. Nor can I see a time where we'd go and work in a few different places because we just wouldn't. But we've got to be able to defend ourselves as a UK nation on all fronts, and getting a different view from a different country, a different attack profile. That can only reinforce your knowledge that you can bring back to the UK, because you might see attacks moving around the globe, and the way that businesses are getting targeted in the UK, that might not have happened in Dubai yet. Or similarly, the way that businesses are getting targeted in Dubai might not have happened in the UK yet. So all it can do is just deepen the knowledge and deepen the value that we can provide to businesses within the UK or further afield.
So this isn't... You love this?
Yeah.
Nerd.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's... I
so
always...
this isn't as though you're building this to sell?
No.
This is still you back when you were a kid with that block of wood building an alarm system?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Every day is different. Every day there's something new. Every day is a school day. It's you never stop learning. You never stop getting surprised. It's horrific, but it's wonderful. There's when I did the jungle survival course, there was a book I read beforehand. It was called "The Jungle is Neutral," and basically everything that out there is beautiful, but it'll kill you. It tastes rubbish, but it's the most healthy thing you can eat. There's no middle ground. It's wonderful and lethal, but it's neutral, and I think this is where we're at. The cyberspace is neutral. It's wonderful, but it can destroy you in so many ways, and it keeps changing, it keeps evolving, and it's a awesome place to to work, because like I say, no 2 days are the same. You know, every day is different.
Do you happy?
Am I happy? I enjoy doing what I do. I wouldn't say I was happy because we're not where I want to be just yet. You know,
What's missing? I don't mean like striving for another goal, the next goal, the next goal. Is that just an infinite process?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that means you're never going to be happy.
I was never going to be happy, but I never want to. I never want to get to that point where I'm content, because there's
Settled, comfort. Right, fine.
good things never
But-
come from comfort zones. I think I'm happy under stress. I'm happy when it's hard. Hard work is brilliant, and you know, doing all the hard things that we do. That I suppose is happiness, because nobody else is doing them.
Hmm.
And you know, I mean, obviously we can't talk about everything that we do, but it's those things that we can't talk about. It's like they're the things that keep us going. They're the things that motivate us. They're the things that, you know, really sort of drive us forward, because we're the only people that can do it, and that's awesome.
So there are other cybersecurity firms, right?
That there are, yeah.
Yours, you differentiate.
Yeah.
Would you say your experience in the RAF helped you? Is what makes?
I think
Is it the differentiating factor?
I think it's an evolution. I think that foundation that I got, you know, it can't be replicated, because the jobs that I did don't exist anymore. So that experience can't readily be replicated. I mean, I wasn't the easiest employee when I was serving in the RAF, but you know,
What do you mean?
I was always challenging people, always challenging the status quo. I would have been a real thorn in some people's side, because I always asked why. Not because I was being an idiot, but I generally want to know why. Why are they thinking that way? Why is their thought process taking them down that path? Why have they done something that way? Because they've obviously thought that was the right thing to do in that set of circumstances, but I could see that it wasn't, and I would want to understand why they'd done it that way. And I mean, very few people took it the way that I intended it, but you know, I was young, foolish, peanut for brain. What can I say?
But did those oftentimes result in improvements?
Ultimately, yeah. I think.
So ultimately, did you have more respect than God? He's a pain in the ass.
I don't know. I never really asked or cared what people thought. I mean, I still don't, to a degree. You know, we go off and we do what we do, and we have a particular way of doing it. And you know, we're not right for a lot of businesses. The way that we think, the way that we operate, the way that we do our thing. But I think that's right. You've got to have, when you're talking about security and cybersecurity, you've got to have somebody who challenges what you think. That somebody who challenges how you think, challenges why you've done something, to make you think, is that right? You know, we always say, understand the threat, assess the risk, do the right thing. If your understanding of the threats against you are flawed, because you haven't been challenged, you haven't asked the right questions, somebody hasn't said to you, why? You know, if you can't then make the right risk assessment. And if you can't make the right or accurate risk assessment, doing the right thing is not going to be the right thing. So you've got to have that pain in the backside, chirping away, why have you done that? Why have you done it that way? Why do you think that's a good idea? And as much as it's a nose, that's what we're there for. We're there to challenge it. We're there to make sure that, yeah, that is the right thing to do. And then when you risk assess it, chuck in all the risks, understand all the risks associated with doing it. And it might be that when you've done a really accurate risk assessment, it might not be the right thing to do, because it doesn't actually mitigate the risks far enough. Might be a risk that can't be mitigated. So there's no point in doing something that can't mitigate that risk. Let's go back to the threat. What haven't we understood about that? So this whole risk assessment process needs somebody there challenging the status quo all the way and providing that information, that intelligence, that different perspective, that unique insight to help make the business stronger, because the business will only get stronger if it does the right thing. And it can only do the right thing by doing the right risk assessments. And if it's not understanding the threat properly, it can't do any of the others. So understand the threat, assess the risk, do the right thing, and repeat it. Absolutely critical.
When I said, are you happy? You said, no, because we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Where's there?
No idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is that ethereal? Happiness?
Yeah, I think when we approach a comfort zone, we don't want to loiter in it for too long. And as soon as you get comfortable in this game, something happens. So we never want to be in that comfortable space. We've always got to be thinking, right, what's next? What's the next thing that's out there? And I think we've got to be that, always looking, always trying to find where something's going to go wrong, because it will. But that's where we've got to be. And I think if I was happy or content, dwelling in this comfort zone, then we've lost our spear point.
So now so from a business point of view, yeah, I agree. I quite like that, especially from a defender. I quite like you always being somewhat angsty.
Yeah.
I don't want a sleeping security guard.
Yeah.
I get that. But you, happy?
I'm enjoying what I do, yeah. Yeah.
You seem happy.
I mean, I wouldn't say that I was. Again, I'm not one that's ever said, "Oh yeah, I am happy," because to my mind, the way that I'm wired up, as soon as you're happy and comfortable, you've dropped your guard. So guard is always up, and I'm never going to say I'm happy, because I'm content and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But no, I'm never going to get into that comfort zone. I want to stay outside of that.